Amat merat ike tesol derat ikmerut.
Hey y'all, Dave here. Okay, so I can hear the collective moans of all of you after reading the title of this video. And you know what? I agree with you. There are plenty of arguments out there about what the one true definition of atheism is, and why it is the one true definition of atheism. Getting into an argument about the definition of atheism is as simple as going onto any Twitter or into any Facebook group that's dedicated to atheism or the atheist versus theist debate and posting there are multiple definitions of atheism. You'll quickly find yourself inundated by people arguing that there is only one singular definition of atheism. You'll be glad to know, though, that's not what this video is about. If you want to know my views on the atheism definition debate, you can check out my video, Atheism, A Tale of Two Usages. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. No, this video is about something else. In this video, I'm going to discuss why I think having a discussion about the definition is important. And it's not for the reason that you are probably assuming right now. So why do I think atheists discussing atheism is important? Well, there's actually lots of reasons that I think it's important, so you'll have to bear with me while I discuss them. Let's start with one of the first and most important reasons, though. Skepticism. Well, whenever discussions about the definition of atheism are brought up, many atheists will claim that there is only one definition of atheism, or that other definitions are wrong, or they create weird conspiracy theories about definitions, or claim they're just simply redefinitions. And that's fine, don't get me wrong. Many people may only have learned one definition, or may have learned from others that there is only one definition. That's not the problem here. The problem comes after that. The problem comes when we actually try to discuss whether the claims of a singular definition are true. Most discussions that center around whether or not that claim is true usually become shouting matches, and can more often than not end up in you being blocked by other atheists and skeptics. That's not to say that all conversations are like this. I've had some very pleasant and interesting conversations about the definition of atheism. However, there are those atheists that dig their heels in and yell at those that argue differently, and they refuse to accept evidence to the contrary of their view, and eventually block people for arguing to the contrary, and this needs to be discussed. As stated previously, this kind of behavior is the opposite of good skepticism. There are lots of ways that people in the skeptic and atheist community define what skepticism is. Most have a sort of common theme that runs through them all, though. If you ask the average skeptic today what skepticism is, then you may get some idiosyncrasies in that definition, but most will agree to something like skepticism is doubting or not accepting a claim until provided with sufficient evidence and justification. Some of the words may be different, but that is the general idea of skepticism that floats around the skeptic and atheist community today. So it could even be argued that when presented with the claim that there is more than one definition of atheism, some atheists and skeptics are doing their due diligence as skeptics. I mean, after all, they are here being confronted with a claim that contradicts what they currently believe to be true. So of course they're going to doubt you when you confront them with this. After all, there are people considered to be authorities on atheism, like Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra, arguing that there is only one definition of atheism. They are also surrounded by other atheists online and possibly in real life, arguing that there is only a singular definition of atheism. To them, the claim that there are multiple definitions of atheism is the unusual claim, which means that there is nothing particularly wrong with some of the skepticism we see towards the claim that there is more than one definition of atheism. No, like I said, that's not where the problem lies per se. As I said, it is what comes after the initial skepticism that is the problem. Many will dig their heels in that the claim is wrong, regardless of the evidence that's presented to them. Let's consider one of the popular rebuttals often offered by skeptics as evidence that there is only one definition or usage of atheism, the often touted dictionary definition. Many atheists will simply make a brief trip to the Google search engine, type definition of atheism into the search bar, and then screenshot the definition that shows in the result. The screenshot is then presented as evidence of the claim that there is only a singular definition of atheism. And that seems to be a fair enough response at this point. This is probably what they have been taught is the only definition, and that this is evidence that it is the only definition. So we should expect them to repeat it. However, other definitions of atheism can be found in other dictionaries, in general dictionaries as well as in philosophical dictionaries. And when these dictionary definitions are presented as counter evidence to the claim that there is only one definition, many atheists will simply declare that those dictionaries are wrong, which means that those atheists are disregarding their skepticism as soon as they are confronted with evidence that counters their claim. It seems that there is a selection bias happening in their evidence collection. Anything that favors their claim that there is a single definition of atheism is evidence. Anything that does not favor their claim is not evidence. It seems to be the case, though, that if a dictionary is evidence of how a word is used, then all dictionaries are evidence of how the word is used. That's what dictionaries do. They describe how words are used. So rather than adjusting their claim to the evidence, they adjust the evidence to their claim, and that's just not how good skepticism works. Of course, the discussion could, and actually sometimes does, lead on to how dictionaries work, how language works, what counts as evidence, and other related topics. More times than you would think, though, the discussion never actually gets that far. Standard arguments are generally trotted out for why atheism means only one thing. And when those arguments are confronted and countered, many atheists will resort to the mute or block button. Though some will simply declare that they aren't interested in semantics or semantic games and walk away from the discussion and then go on to continue to argue that there is only one kind of atheism. And this attitude is also promoted by some of the bigger names in atheism like Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra, which adds another problem to this kind of behavior from atheists and skeptics. Not only is it bad skepticism, but it creates dogma among atheists and skeptics, something that seems to me to be pretty antithetical to skepticism. A skeptic is supposed to question dogma, not create unquestionable dogmas. This gives us another reason why the discussion about the definition of atheism is important. It fights against the dogma that is being created among atheists. Of course, there's going to be some atheists here arguing that there is no dogma in atheism, and therefore atheists can't be following dogma. That reasoning is faulty, because the dogma need not necessarily come from atheism itself. The dogma can come from within the atheist communities, and from people considered authorities about atheism. And so this leads us to another good reason why we should be having these discussions. People like Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, the ACA, the American Atheist, and the Canadian Atheists have become not only unquestioned authorities, but unquestionable authorities. Questioning or criticizing people like Matt Dillahunty or Aaron Ra will often lead to being blocked. Often during discussions, their words or the words of the ACA, the American Atheist, or the Canadian Atheists are presented as if their word settles the matter. Questioning their authority or what makes them authoritative on the subject will often lead to disparaging remarks, or remarks like, well, they would know, or I would trust them over you any day, and other similar retorts. The cycle is then repeated, with the end result usually being those who are arguing against them are dismissed, muted, blocked, or mocked. So the discussion is worth having because it can help to curb the creation of these unquestionable authorities and also keep these so-called authorities in check. All of these seem to be pretty important reasons, at least for a skeptic, to have the discussion about the definition of atheism. There are also lots of other reasons, such as it leads to the questioning of other claims and arguments made by many atheists, with many claims and arguments being held with the same sense of unquestionable dogmatism that the definition of atheism is held with. Things like you can't prove a negative, or atheism is the default position, or atheism is the null hypothesis. The discussion about the definition of atheism involves good skepticism, good epistemology, the avoidance of dogmatism about atheism and from atheists, and the questioning of authorities, and what makes someone an authority, what makes something evidence, and much more. Accepting that these are important and accepting that this discussion needs to go on could also open the many closed minds of many skeptics and atheists. It can also help us to avoid the creation of echo chambers in the atheist community. Something else that also seems pretty antithetical to good skepticism. After all, good skepticism cannot happen in a place where people are only allowed to be skeptical of pre-approved topics. That seems less like skepticism and more akin to the creation and promotion of ideology. So, to go into detail about every reason why the discussion surrounding the definition of atheism needs to happen would lead to a pretty long video, and I'm trying to keep them kind of short. However, the reasons presented here seem to be good starting reasons for why the discussion should be had rather than avoided. It simply makes for better skeptics, skepticism, atheists, and atheism. The one caveat I would add here, though, is that there is one element of that discussion that is just simply not worth having. That element is to argue what the one true definition of atheism is. The reason being that there is no one true definition of atheism, no matter how much people like Ron Ra and Randolph Richardson argue that there is. Cheers. Bye.